What's up, fanatics? Could it be? Will it be? Is it? Is this the year that we get to see John Tortorella hoist the cup one more time? Almost like a middle finger to the rest of the NHL. I'm Tim Clark, and you're listening to the Musings of a Sports Fanatic, a podcast found exclusively here at PennSports.live and also live streaming on my YouTube channel, which I need to figure out how to promote more. Let's start out, as I like to do each week, give a shout out to FeedSpot. Let me give them their applause here. Check out FeedSpot. They've had me in their top 20 for a while now, and there's lots of cool podcasts, cool things that you can find at FeedSpot, so go check them out. All right, back to this NHL Stanley Cup thing. Carolina even to series 1-1. I kind of wanted Carolina and Colorado, but Carolina and Vegas is a pretty good plan B for the NHL for their Stanley Cup, and they need a good series for what has been a pretty poor, in terms of excitement, playoff season for them. But John Tortorella is sort of he's the antichrist of the NHL. He does things his way. He wears out his welcome quickly, usually. I do think maybe, just maybe, he's mellowing slightly, ever so slightly, in his old age. But look, I think characters like that are good for any league. The guys that you either love or hate. I think that's sort of sports, right? That's, you can go to whichever league you want, and you can find guys like that. And Tortorella certainly is that for the NHL. But 1-1, some questionable things there. A goal that potentially could have won the game for Vegas that was disallowed, and then Carolina wins it in the extra time to tie the series 1-1. Going back to Vegas, though, if Vegas can hold serve at home, they'll be one game away by the next time. Well, the next time we tape, which I am taping, by the way, Saturday, June 6th at about 12:45. I got to get done before the USC baseball game. More on that in a minute. But I saw some things being bannered about on social media with the NHL. Like too many Carolina and Vegas expansion teams, and look how often they've appeared in the Stanley Cup Finals already in their short tenures. I think that brings up a great point. It's hard to get cities to buy in and ownership to buy in if you're going to put a expansion franchise so far behind the eight ball. And, I remember the Seahawks and the Buccaneers coming into the NFL. Certainly the Texans even more recently, but I'm going back, and it took the Seahawks and the Bucs quite some time. Now the Bucs under John McKay did have that season where they made it to a championship, an NFC championship game. But baseball, I remember the Mariners and Blue Jays, and it took them quite some time. Seattle's still trying to find their way to a World Series. And I just think our world is different. Certainly our sports world is different. Instant gratification is a thing. It is. And I don't think cities, ownership, certainly fans, don't want to wait 2 decades before they see their team get a chance to have a run to a championship, or at least an attempted championship. So I give the NHL credit. I mean, did they make it too easy? Maybe. Vegas was from the get-go, Vegas became a quality team. They also benefit. Here's another one that I think the sports world, I don't know if they need to address it. I don't know how you would address it, but the states that don't have state income tax, players want to go there. So they're not going to give away a bunch of their money to taxes. And Vegas is one of those. So I don't know. certainly I don't know that there's anything you can do there, but I just think it's fans from the traditional teams, the traditional six in the NHL. Well, you know what? Be better. The Canadian teams need to be better. Um, they've got a drought that is like a lifetime almost at this point. Like but be better. Why blame it on the NHL? They made it too easy for the expansion teams. Maybe it is that you need to be better. So anyway, all right. Let's move on to some other stuff in the sports world. Let's start with the NBA here. Man, the Knicks are like a steamroller this playoff season. At least the Spurs have played them close, and actually Victor Wembanyama last night sort of handed them the game on a silver platter. But up until this series, the Knicks have been coasting. Like they've been coasting through the playoffs. And it's, I know as far back as when I did this podcast with my friend Jed, he always said, these leagues desperately want, and especially the NBA has been dying for the New York market, for the Knicks to make it to a finals. And boy, the TV ratings are showing it. Now, I think Victor Wembanyama, who is the face of the NBA, should have been the MVP, is part of that too. But TV ratings were way, way up. You have to go back to the LeBron versus Steph series. Gosh, I forget. I mean, that's like it's many years ago. To have TV ratings for game one of the NBA Finals be like that. So you've got your New York influence there. You've got your Wemby influence there. Game one was better than 15 out of the last 16 game one World Series games in baseball. One of your, look, the sports, no one's touching the NFL. So the other sports are kind of, battling it out for that sort of the second place in the sports world. But having New York in the finals is a big boon for the NBA. And again, they needed it. You've heard me say it, I'm not an NBA fan. I think the product is poor. The style of play is poor. But if you needed an injection, if you're the NBA, you got it with a Knicks finals and a Victor Wembanyama being on the other sideline. But it's been again sort of a rough playoff season for the NBA as well. Not a lot of close games. The OKC San Antonio series up until Game 7, and again there you go, Game 7 blowout. So they needed a little injection. So that's going to bring me to a little early in the podcast this week, the time machine. So let's see what I've got queued up in the old 8-track player. How about a little Rat? One of the great lead-ins. Lay It Down. You don't really want to see me. That's kind of like me in the NBA, right? But it wasn't always that way. So we're going to go back to the 70s with the Knicks in the finals. It reminded me personally of how I used to love the NBA. Loved it. And as a little kid, like I'm talking about 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, we had limited channels. You young folks that are used to having 145 channels at your service and 18 streaming services. There was a day where when I was a kid, we had ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS. We did not have Fox yet in the 70s. So you had the three big networks, PBS, And then I had the two New York stations here in central Pennsylvania, WOR and WPIX. Well, WOR carried the Knicks. And so I became a Sixers fan later, and that was sort of the Dr. J influence. I really liked him, watched him in the ABA. I watched a lot of ABA basketball back in the 70s. Artis Gilmore was actually my favorite player because he had the big afro. And I was this pasty white kid from a all white community that thought that was pretty cool. That these guys have this big head of hair. That was pretty cool. And he wore the headband. That was so. I was an Artis Gilmore fan. But in the evenings, you'd tune into WOR in the wintertime. And remember, this is like we weren't getting 85 college basketball games every night. So you turn on WOR and Bob Wolf and Cal Ramsey. Ramsey played college ball and had a cup of coffee in the NBA. I liked listening to Cal Ramsey. Bob Wolf was a sort of a longtime Knicks play-by-play guy. But I fell in love with Walt Frazier. His game, the way he handled, he was so cool. And to a little 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, I was like, man, that guy's cool. Just slick with the ball. Really wasn't like a great scorer. He had games. Earl Monroe was more of the scoring guard, but I like Walt Frazier. I like Walt Frazier enough, and it was broken by my mom's cleaning lady years ago. Lady made these ceramic figurines of players for me, and I'm sitting here looking in my basement. I have Joe Namath and Willie Stargell. Lynn Swan got cracked, and Walt Frazier got broken, which I don't even want to discuss it. But I liked Walt Frazier. But think about, let me read off these names that I got to watch every night on WOR with the Knicks. Now, by the time I got to 9, 10 years old, like the mid 70s, the Knicks were sort of fading. Now they played the Sixers in the 76 when the Sixers went to and lost to Portland in the finals. And by that time, Frazier was done with the Knicks. But you had Frazier, Monroe, Earl the Pearl, Bill Bradley, the Senator, Phil Jackson. I remember watching Phil Jackson, not knowing how smart he was as a kid. He was the most annoying player back then. Easily my least favorite Knick. Hated when they brought him into games. Again, I didn't realize like what was cooking up here in his brain, how smart he was. But hated watching him. Dave DeBusschere was one of my favorites. Willis Reed, of course. How about Hawthorne Wingo? Again, as a little kid, you're like, what? That's the coolest name ever. Hawthorne Wingo. John Gianelli, big man, that played for the Knicks, sort of a backup. Spencer Haywood, Dean Meminger, Butch Beard. I wasn't a Louisville Cardinal fan yet. I would become a Louisville Cardinal basketball fan a few years later, but Butch Beard from Louisville played on those Knicks teams. It was just so much fun watching it because you didn't have, again, I didn't have 145 choices on TV back then. And so as a kid, I learned to like sports early on, and my dad wasn't even a big basketball fan. So it was just me sitting there spinning the dial. And hey, I'm gonna watch the Knicks. And then I watched Walt Frazier and how slick he was with the ball, and I was like, man, like that's and so my dislike of the NBA really didn't start until years later. I wasn't a fan of that Pistons era where it was, games were 85 to 83 and at least two guys left with a bloody nose at the end of the game. I did enjoy watching Magic Johnson. I enjoyed rooting against Larry Bird, even though I knew he was one of the greatest players I would ever watch play the game. He played for the arch enemy Celtics. So I liked the NBA up through there. And then it just started to fade. And then in this product currently, I just don't like. But man, it was fun back in the 70s. Like I said, really early to mid 70s for me. I was about 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, and flip on Channel 9. I still remember what channel it was. Channel 9 WOR TV. out of New York, and Wolf and Ramsey on the call of the New York Knickerbockers, and they would call them the Knickerbockers back then, oftentimes, not just shorten it to Knicks. So that is my memory from the time machine for this week. All right, onward and upward. College basketball, the last big transfer domino fell this past week. Milan Momcilovic, formerly of Iowa State, probably the best shooter in college basketball. He took the money. And look, that's I won't bore you with any more of the talk about the bill. I did that on Wall to Wall. Check Wall to Wall out at PennSports.live or my YouTube channel, either one. I did sort of talk about Nick Saban's conversation with Congress and things like that. But it's the era we live in. Kentucky offered him a significant amount of money, more money, I should say, than Louisville, who I would think that the bank was almost dry at Louisville with what they spent on other players. Oh gosh, excuse me, there was a third team. I can't think of who the third team was. Oklahoma, I think, of all things. Kind of a weird choice. I think it was Oklahoma. But he chose Kentucky. Kentucky needed it. Mark Pope needed it. Mark Pope needed something to calm the howling of the wolves in Lexington. And so we'll see if I saw the guys that do the certainly way too early top 25s with Momcilovic on the Kentucky roster. Suddenly they bumped into the top 15 or certainly top 20. So that was a big get. And I was looking, now that the dust is mostly settled, there are certainly still guys in the portal, but not anyone that I would say is a difference maker. So I started looking, and, in college football, and part of that meeting with Saban and Congress and the bill that they're trying to pass and all that, there's a significant difference between the Big Ten and the SEC and everybody else. There just is. And for 100 years in college basketball, it was the ACC. Obviously, 100 years is hyperbole, but you get my point. ACC, it was dominant in college basketball. And so Duke is going to be really good. They got the Blackwell kid from Wisconsin. I was thinking, might Duke be better without Boozer? Might that be one of those things where there was too much of watching him try to back people into the basket? I think that offense will be a way more free-flowing this year at Duke. So Duke's going to be good. Louisville really added. And as a Louisville fan, I hope they're going to challenge Duke. I hope they're going to be really good. They added a ton from the portal. Virginia has the chance to be pretty good, if not really good too, but pretty good. And then North Carolina, new coach. Malone's the new coach there. There could be a transition year for North Carolina, so maybe like bottom end of the top 25, or the next 5 or 10 schools on the list type of season. And I think Miami's going to be good. But that's 2 really good teams, and Virginia that could go, for anywhere from good to really good. And then a couple of teams that might be, Miami might be certainly top 20, and North Carolina maybe top 25, top 30. But then the bottom drops out again. The ACC in basketball desperately needs the Syracuses. Now NC State's going through another transition with coaches. Clemson, he does a good job down there. He doesn't have the budget to bring in lots of high-end guys at Clemson. And Notre Dame is just Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury's going to coach his way out of South Bend before too long. And but the ACC needs some of those schools to step it up, and for them to be competitive with the Big Ten and SEC. But they're just not there right now, and I don't think you're going to see it next year either. So it's just something that crossed my mind as I was looking at things in college basketball. Golf. So the U.S. Open is in 2 weeks, and they're at Jack's course at the Memorial in Ohio, and it gave Nicklaus a chance to speak to the media since he's hosting the tournament. And I think when Jack Nicklaus, I was never a fan of his because he took too long to play. It drove me nuts when I was a kid watching him play. But when Jack Nicklaus talks about golf, I think you should listen. And his suggestion was that the big tournaments, now he's not talking about the majors per se, but the big tournaments, what the PGA is now referring to as elevated tournaments, are too bunched together. And he said it's really hard to schedule because players need a week off here and there. Unless you're one of those guys trying to get your card or trying to keep your card, and then you're probably not in those elevated events anyway. He suggested that they find a way to try to spread them a little bit. I think one thing they could do, and I don't know if they want to do it, because I know after the British Open is over in July, it's like you kind of exhale and then you wait for the FedEx Cup, which a lot of golf fans are still not, it's not popular with a lot of golf fans. I like it, but a lot of people don't. Maybe you throw one or two of those elevated events after the British Open, or at least one. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you squeeze another one in between the U.S. Open and the British Open. I think he has a point. The player, they get fatigued, and they want to take, you want to, and all these elevated events, like every elevated event wants Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, like they want those big names. Well, those guys need a week off, and I think in its respect to them for doing it, like Scheffler is going to play a couple of the quote unquote lower end tournaments, like the one in Texas is his home, and he's always going to play that. McIlroy does that too. A lot of the guys do. It's not just those two. So it's I think maybe they need to listen to Nicklaus on that issue, and see if they can't find some space, and it might have to be that you knock a couple into late July, early August before, the Wyndham Cup kind of leads into the FedEx Cup. So we'll see. We'll see. Right now, JT Poston is leading at Jack's tournament. I think this could be Sam Burns' week. He's lurking in third place. There's a guy I don't really even know, quite frankly, in second place. I don't know if Poston can hold on. It's a tough course, and the wind's been up. They have storms rolling through that area today. We'll see if they can even get their round in today. That's the weather coming through there doesn't look great. How about Scotty Scheffler? Frustration showing he's actually not a robot and is a human being. I think everyone knows that his relationship with Ted Scott as caddy is like brothers. But he let Scott have it the other day because he went in the water, and it was because, at least in Scotty's mind, he flushed the shot. You gave me bad wind direction. And the mics on the course caught it all, and it's so Scheffler, by anyone else's standard, you'd be saying, boy, Scheffler's having a great season. He's top 5, top 10. But he's not winning, and he's having bad rounds. He's been having like a bad round per tournament, and then as he fights his way back, he's buried himself too deep to get to the winner's circle. And he did the same thing this week. He's at even par, 1 over, something like that. Poston's at 900. Now, again, I think that number backs up a little bit with those top two guys. But nonetheless, Scheffler's going to have to go lights out on the weekend. He had a shanker in the bunker. He's just been, by Scheffler standards, he's been off. And I know there were people saying, "Oh, he yelled at his caddy." I bet he's yelled at his caddy before. You just didn't have the hot mics out on the course picking it up. I thought it was refreshing to see that, hey, he's just like me. I get mad when I make a bad shot too out on the local course, and he's human. And so I had no problem with that. But it is interesting. He has standards up here, and he's only getting to about here, which is, again, by by 90% of the PGA Tour, they'd be like, man, I'd love to have that season. But those upper echelon, the McElroys and the Schefflers and that gang, Schauffele, like they want more than that. So, but refreshing to see him give a little shout to his caddy. All right. I mentioned I want to get done here before the USC game starts at 2:00 today down in Chapel Hill. I don't want to jinx anything. I don't even know if I want to say this, let the words come out of my mouth. It's been a long time since they've been to Omaha, and they are still, even though it's been a long drought, they're still the standard bearer when you look at national championships in baseball, 12 of them. It was a automatic back in the day that USC was going to be in Omaha for the College World Series, and this is the first super regional in 21 years for them. Andy Stankiewicz has done a fantastic job bringing back the baseball program at USC. They built a first-class facility, as they are doing for football. $300 million. The schools are hurting for money thing, but. And they only lost one home game this year. But I said this is the thing. I don't want to. I feel like maybe they're a bit of a team of destiny this year. They couldn't beat UCLA to save their life. They had them on the ropes 2 or 3 times this year, a couple times in the regular season, and in the Big Ten semis. And UCLA came back and won those games. They went up to Oregon and lost 2 out of 3 in the last one in 15 innings. They were right there. Nebraska was the other really good team in the Big Ten, and they got swept at Nebraska. And those games against those bigger teams cost them a chance to host a regional, which may have put a chip on their shoulder. I don't know. But they're hitting better in the tournament than they did all season long. And yesterday, my son wanted to go to over to State College, and I said, I want to watch this game. But then when he got home from work, I said, let's go. I think they're going to lose this game anyway. Down 5-1, and then they made it 5-2. And I saw they were rallying. So I told my son, I said, let me watch the end of this inning here and see if they get closer. Well, sure enough, they end up loading the bases. And a guy that really doesn't have a lot of pop in his bat, and Carolina pitching their best relief pitcher to get out of this jam, and boom, grand slam. USC goes up 6-5. The next inning they extend it, and the next inning after that they make it 9-5. And USC's had good pitching all year long, and they were able to hold on. So they need one more win to get to Omaha. Again, I don't know, knock on my wooden brain that I didn't jinx them, but it's almost feels like UCLA's out, Nebraska's out, now Oregon's still playing, but it's almost as if the destiny is calling the Trojans back to Omaha. Fun group of kids to root for. I told you last week I've enjoyed watching the college ball. A lot of bunting. Which I'm not as big a fan of bunting, but my buddy that played some college ball, we were walking the other night, getting our exercise in and solving all the world's problems, and he said, well, you know what though, in college it's necessary more, and I agree with that, but it's so much more strategy. And the excitement of the kids is phenomenal. So we'll see if USC can pull this one off. The other scene in college baseball is down in Morgantown, West Virginia. If you haven't caught a glimpse of that, I posted some things from Twitter on my column this week here at PennSports.live in my final thoughts. What a scene singing Country Roads at the end of the game. And they stomped Cal Poly, who had to come across the country to play that series, although USC had to come across the country to North Carolina. But I think West Virginia is going to end up in Omaha, and they pack that place. They go bananas. College baseball really is. I know there's a lot of regular season games where you watch on TV and there's like 16 people in the stands, but for the World Series, for the tournament, a lot of these places have been, the atmosphere has been electric. So fun to watch. All right, on to the pros. And I was looking, I think Christopher Sanchez right now would, without question, get my vote for the Cy Young from Philadelphia. He, God forbid, gave up a run the other night, still lowered his ERA to 146. And then everyone's been raving about Sasaki from the Dodgers. I'm like, let me look up what he's still got a 4.01 ERA. So he must have been really bad at the beginning of the year because he's had some really good starts here of late. But Shohei Ohtani caught my eye. And I think I'm guilty of it. I think we've started to take him for granted because now we've seen this thing for 4 or 5 years, pitching and hitting, playing both ways, the modern day Babe Ruth. Shohei Ohtani's ERA is 0.74. Now, he's got about 30 less innings. Well, not 30 less innings, about 3 less starts than Sanchez. So maybe about 20, 25 less innings. So 67 strikeouts in 61 innings. And then don't forget, he's hitting as well. And he's hitting 296. Boy, he's slacking there, not hitting 300. 10 homers, 6 stolen bases. He must be taking it easy on the bases this year. 14 doubles. He's walked 42 times. Now, Babe Ruth walked like a gazillion times back in his day. And because I know, like Rex was telling me, Rex here at the website was telling me a week or so ago about, someone did a extrapolation of the stadiums today. If Babe Ruth played in the stadiums today, that he would have had 100 home run season. I don't know if I buy that. And that's I think it's so hard to compare generations. And I've had this argument on here and with some friends as well. I'm not saying Shohei is Babe Ruth, but it's a once in a lifetime chance, maybe once in like 2 lifetime chances to see a guy go both ways and then on top of that do it as well as he's doing it. Babe was dominant for a 15-year period. Okay, there's no doubt about it. And Shohei would have to continue at his pace for many more years to get that longevity that Babe Ruth had. But, and Babe didn't pitch all those years either. And I think eventually Shohei won't either. Probably. But he's got a 2.2 WAR on offense and a 2.9 WAR as a pitcher. So he's worth more than 5 wins already, and we're not even halfway into June. So just astonishing what he's doing out there. And again, I think we take him for granted. I have done it. We kind of just, Shohei again. I think the Pirate fans are going to get to see him pitch against Skeens here this week coming up, and Skeens has not been good. More on that in a minute. But other stuff in baseball, I want to talk about the Phillies a little bit. They're on an 8-2 stretch and still 8.5 back because the Braves just don't slow down much. And I think if you're a Phillies fan, that's a little frustrating. Like you go 8-2 in a 10-game stretch, you figure, hey, we've cut it to maybe 6, 6.5, 7. But nope, still 8.5 back of the red hot Braves. But Sanchez did give up a run. He lowered his ERA to 146. Listen to these numbers, and the reason I would give him the Cy Young, 103 strikeouts, 86 innings pitched. So I was right. It was exactly 25 innings more than Shohei. And only 17 walks. He's only walked. So he's coming at guys and saying, go ahead and hit it. And they're not. They're not. So, and if you want to know how good the 1-2 punch is in Philly, Wheeler is his. I'm sorry. Sanchez's whip is 109, which I think is phenomenal. And then I looked at Wheeler's. Wheeler's whip is 0.83. So if the Phillies can find some consistency in their 3, 4, 5 starters, which they might end up making a move at some point here between now and the trade deadline, because I don't know that Nola, Luzardo's okay. You're not going to. He's good one, bad one, good one, bad one, which is pretty typical for a number 4 starter type guy. But I don't know that Nola, and then the number 5 starter Pater is a rookie. You're trying to find out about him. I don't know. Maybe they stick with what they have, but their 1-2 punch is dominant. Hitting, and this is what same friend I was talking about earlier said. This is what troubles him a bit. He's a Phillies fan. He said they can't manufacture runs. Everything's a home run or bust. To that point, Trey Turner, 224. Kyle Schwarber, 246, which again you put up with because he's going to bop 45 home runs and 120 RBIs, but 246. Harper, 265. What you're paying him, 265 is just not good enough. I'm sorry. Alec Boehm, 218. Garcia, who I thought would be better than this, 202. Marsh, 332, but his career average is 268. And since he's been getting 400 or more at bats, there's no indication that he's going to hit 300 for the season, which means you should expect some regression from him. Crawford, 232, Stott, 219, Real Muto, 213, and Sosa, who comes in, he's their number 1 guy off the bench, 204. And my friend is right. Those batting averages don't lend to a lot of innings where you string hits together. Now, ironically, they did against the Pirates when they swept the Pirates. Unfortunately, that was their time to get hot with the bats, where a lot of guys were hitting and they were stringing hits together. But that is a problem. Now, they've gone 8-2, and mainly because their pitchers really harnessed the Padres lineup during that series. But the Phillies are, and I don't know what you do. That is the makeup of your team. Like I said, Schwarber, you put up with it from. Harper, he's still going to be productive, but I just think for the money you're paying him, 265 is not enough. But Bohm kills you, Stott kills you, Garcia's killing you. Like that's not. Trey Turner at 224 is killing you. Now, he always gets hot at some point. The next thing you know, it'll be at 270. But we'll see how that plays out. But it's my friend is right. That's a problem for the Phillies. All right, let me see if I can get Spicoli. Yes, I have a Pirates rant.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
Well, Spicoli, first of all, Pirates. I'm ecstatic would be too strong, but I'm really happy with the record. But they lost to the Braves, and they're gonna, they're probably gonna lose another if they can get 1 in Atlanta, and then come home, and then maybe you try and get 2 from the Dodgers at home, and kind of make that a 3-3 6-game stretch. But they had won 8 out of 11 going into last night, so I can't complain about that. Well, actually, yes, I can. Because they keep giving away games with their defense and their bullpen. Now, there's not a lot you can do about the defense. Nick Gonzalez is going to kick the ball around at third base, but you can't bench him because he's hitting 315. So you have to put up with that. Brandon Lau has actually been much better than I expected at second base on defense. But he does, there's not real rangy. Spencer Horwitz struggles to scoop Nick Gonzalez's bad throws. And so between the two of them, they kind of cost them a game earlier in the week. And so that's a problem. O'Neal Cruz, here's how bad their defense is. O'Neal Cruz is only about the 6th or 7th listed problem on defense. He made a great catch last night in Atlanta. His speed and his arm, I'm fine with him being in center field. He's getting better. He's learning. There's going to be a mistake here and there. Ryan O'Hearn looks like me running around in right field, and that's not a pretty sight. And Brian Reynolds just looks goofy in left this year. Every time a fly ball gets hit out there, I worry about it. But I don't know what you do about the defense. Jared Triolo would be a good third baseman, but he's going to hit about $140 for you. I'm ready to move on from Jared Triolo, quite frankly. So let's put the defense aside and let's address a problem that can be addressed, and that is the bullpen. Ben Cherington, call somebody. Call Boston. Call Boston, Ben. Call Boston. Find out what they want for Aroldis Chapman. You shouldn't have let him leave Pittsburgh in the first place. He was effusive with his praise of Pittsburgh when he was here. He would be your closer immediately. Find out what they want to pry Chapman away from them. Boston's not going anywhere this year. They don't need a closer. Find out. Call Boston, Ben, and find out. And don't wait until July 28th to do it. First of all, he's probably already been traded to someone else by then. You need to quit frittering away games right now. These games count on the schedule the same as the ones in August and September. The Pirates would be almost neck and neck with the Brewers in the NL Central if it weren't for the games they're giving away with this putrid bullpen. You traded Justin Lawrence. I can't believe the Twins must have a delirious front office that they would want Justin Lawrence, and they even gave you a living, breathing human being, didn't they? Or was it cash considerations? Either way, it was amazing that you got anything for Justin Lawrence. I'm done with Dennis Santana. Just DFA him. He's done. He's finished. He's cooked. Ramirez, I want to see only when you're losing. He's the guy you bring in. You need guys like this. Hey, we need you to eat some innings. We're down 8-1. Come in and eat us some innings up. So you keep him in the bullpen, but you use him that way. Montgomery's got to be better. He's got way too good of stuff to constantly be getting hit like he does. Soto, look, Soto's always going to be that boat that has a leak in it, and you wonder how long you can keep going before the leak becomes too big. And that's Gregory Soto. He's been marginally good, more than marginally. He's been pretty good for them all season, but there have been 2 outings in the last four where he's blown saves. They're next to first or next to last, however you want to view it, in blown saves. Fix the bullpen, Ben. You can fix it. Start calling guys up from AAA until someone look. Bullpen arms are like a dime a dozen, and they're very schizophrenic. And sometimes you find a guy that's hot. This Australian kid, he's another one. Keep him around, but I don't want him in high leverage situations. This Wilbur Dotel, and now you've got Majinski. I think 2 out of the 5 days, that's what you do. And that can save some of your other arms in the bullpen. They did it just the other night. Jared Jones went 5 innings, gave up 1 run. Majinski went 4 innings and gave up, I think, a run. And it was an easy win. And Dotel came in a few games ago, did the exact same thing. I forget who was the starter. I think Bubba Chandler, because Bubba's only been going about 5 innings. And then Dotel came in and gave them 4 really good innings. Do the piggyback thing, even though this guy here doesn't like it. I'm old school. I want my starters to go. I saw Kurt Schilling. I saw a quote from him that he said, I went into every game thinking I had 27 outs to get. They were my 27 outs. I'm not turning it over to someone else. I like that mentality, but that ain't where we're at in baseball. So do the piggyback thing twice a week. But here is the other problem, and this is hindsight. I was glad they kept Mitch Keller. I've always rooted for Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller looks like he could be finished. His MPHs have been down all year. He was getting away with it early in the season, and he was really good. And he always starts seasons well and then fades. Well, his fade is happening way sooner than it usually does. That's a problem. because, again, Jared Jones is coming back from injury, so he's building up. He's more of a 5-inning guy right now. Bubba Chandler, until he finds the strike zone more consistently, which is really frustrating to me considering how good his stuff is, he's a 5-inning guy. Mitch Keller needs to be an inning eater like he was early in the season, and it's just not happening. He's fading fast, and to trade him now would be trading him at a low point where you're not going to, you won't be able to get as much in return. So that's a problem. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, problem number 2 in the rotation is Paul Skeens. There is something wrong there. He has not been dominant all year long, yet he still throws a million pitches. For a guy that won the Cy Young last year and has the arsenal that he has, I've never seen someone like him throw so many non-competitive pitches where no one's going to swing at them. And, he shakes his head on the mound. He gets disgusted with himself, but it drives his pitch count up. He's also down about 4 miles per hour from what he used to be on his fastball. And now it's still it's a lively fastball, and it's still getting by guys from time to time, but there's a lot more batters now fouling that fastball off. Pitch count, building it up. And then eventually these guys are squaring him up. And it is, I don't know, there are many working theories. Was it the World Baseball Classic, which my feeling on that is a contrived, idiotic tournament that is unnecessary. And if I owned the team, my players wouldn't be participating. So he had to get ramped up for that because, of course, he's one of these, I got to be patriotic and pitch for my country. Otherwise, I don't love my country. One of those deals. I ranted about a few weeks ago. So I don't know if ramping up early for that was no good. I don't know if he's just gotten a little bit. I don't want to say he doesn't put me in mind as someone that's going to be too big for his britches. But, he's dating Livy Dunn, and everyone knows Livy Dunn, and they like to go out in the town, and they like to get pictures taken. And the best thing Livy's done is drop the 2 F-bombs in the stand when he gave up the home run a couple games ago, because that's how we're all feeling right now with your boyfriend. So I don't know if it's just like he's putting himself out there too much, and it's taking time away for photo shoots and Livy Dunn shoots, and I don't know. And then, of course, another working theory would be: is there an issue with the arm? Does he have a dead arm? Is it tired? Now, it's hard for me to believe he's got a dead arm. It's not like he dropped from 100, 101 to 91. He's still throwing 97, 98. But you do wonder, you do speculate if there's an arm problem. So the pitching, if you'd have told me, and I know they brought in some hitters, and O'Neal Cruz has been really good for them. But if you'd have told me that the offense was going to carry this team heading into June, I'd have told you were out of your mind. Even as recently as last week on the podcast, I said, look, they've got a pitching staff that's other teams would love to have. But Skeens is struggling. Keller's struggling. Bubba's become a 5-inning guy. Jones is a 5-inning guy. And Ashcraft has been dominant. So you've still got a dominant guy, but you've got 4 other guys that are questionable right now for either lack of command or injury, coming back from injury, or just fading. But Ben, you can still fix the bullpen. So call Boston and find out what it would take to get Chapman before someone beats you to the punch. The owners have volleyed some things back and forth with the players on the next contract. You're probably going to have a salary cap unless the owners do some strange cave-in at the last minute. So your payroll is going to go up anyway because there'll be a salary floor. So don't hesitate to bring guys in here at the back end of this season. The Pirates would make the playoffs if the season ended right now today. They'd be a wild card. This is not typical Pirate pipe dream. This is, we are in the hunt right now, today, and you need to upgrade that bullpen because you can't. The defense is going to be the defense. Someone's got to go out there and clank it around on the field. You've got to. The rules say you got to put 9 guys out on the field. So there's not much you're going to be able to do there, but you can fix the bullpen, or at least attempt to fix it. So, all right. Random off-topic topic to end the podcast, as always. 2 things. I'll do the short one first. Well, they're both going to be fairly short. So you've heard me on here before in the off-topic topic complain about drivers doing silly things like, they let someone out and then you miss the light because they left someone, out. And there's like no one behind me. If they would just let the 2 cars go, they could have got out, like stuff like that. So I went to pull out, and believe it or not, even though I'm in a small town, it's a lot of, obviously, 2 lanes. But we have a group of factories up above where I live, up the road from me. And when they let out, there's a lot of traffic. So I was trying to pull out, and there was a lot of traffic, and there was a lot of traffic coming up the other way as well. So I see this guy flip his left turn signal on, but he's moving over to the right. And I'm like, what's this guy doing? Like wide turning it? So I'm hesitating because it was clear. It was clear coming down the other way. And I'm like, what's this guy doing? The next thing I know, he comes to a stop before the intersection. He's going to turn left, and he gives me the wave out. And what he was doing was making sure that no one went around him so that I could get out. I would have hugged that man if I could have got out of the car and held up traffic. That was just one of the greatest driving moves I've seen. And I plan to use it, let someone else out when I see an opportunity for that, because that's one that you put in the old memory bank. But at first I was like, I don't know what this guy's doing. And then I was like, oh, he's waving me out. He's making sure that, I can go so people aren't going around him on the right to get around him. So kudos to whoever that guy was. That fantastic driving move. My other off-topic topic, short and sweet. I said my son and I went to State College last night. I lead a fairly sheltered life. I don't leave my town very often. My friends make fun of me. I'd love to go see Rush in concert, but I'm like, there's just so many people. Like, and then they all get on me. But I am sheltered. So there was a Buffalo Wild Wings that went into State College last year, I guess it was. And I had really no opportunity or reason to go. My friends and I don't, like my local friends at least, we don't go out for dinners per se or anything like that. Single, so I'm not going out with the wife. And my son went to college, so he and I, he's at college, so I really had no reason or opportunity to go over. But you see all the commercials on TV, and I said to my son when he got back from college, he got back from his trip from Africa, which he said was absolutely fantastic. I said, hey, I want to go over there and eat at Buffalo Wild Wings, because I haven't been there. So last night he said, yeah, we'll go over and eat there. And he wanted to look around some stores and stuff. I got some fish from my aquarium. And they're still living today, so that's always a good thing. When you get PetSmart's fish, or Petco, I guess it is, it's 50-50, quite frankly. But anyway, we go to Buffalo Wild Wings to eat. And now I will say, and it's because of the university, which could have been my hometown of Lewistown. Way back in like the 20s or 30s, whenever Penn State was built, they wanted to build it here in Lewistown, and the powers that be said, no, thank you. And so we're podunk, and State College is so nice. And then when the college kids leave in the summer, it's also peaceful, but still so nice. And so walking through town, they're constantly doing construction over there, putting new buildings up. But this building that the Buffalo Wild Wings, it's in town. It's fantastic structure. It's one of those buildings with the super high ceiling, and you can see sort of the the piping and stuff up there. Sort of, I think it's the modern. I see a lot of places like that now. And the bar's gigantic, and like a zillion things on tap, and of course the TVs. And that's where I watched the end of the USC North Carolina game yesterday. The whole way around the place, and it's in State College, so all kinds of Penn State memorabilia on the walls and stuff. Nice booze and tables. It's big, big place. So it was neat. It was a neat building, and it's sports bar. You get to go and eat and drink and watch sports, and so that part of it's always fun. But there's lots of places for that. As far as the food goes, overpriced bar food, and pretty ordinary bar food. I got a cheesesteak, and their little catch to their cheesesteak, they put the beer cheese in instead of just regular cheese, and they do put a second sliced cheese in it. But the portion wasn't, and I'm trying to lose weight, so the fact that it was smaller should have been good for me. But I look at the price I paid and the size of the sandwich, and the French fries were unbelievably average. And my son and I got the sampler, the appetizer sampler, and you got like 2 or 3 of each thing. And, the pretzel bites were average. The mozzarella sticks were average. The King's Hawaiian sliders were actually pretty good. They put some kind of Southwest Ranch, I think it was, or something like that on it. They were pretty good. And I'm not a wings guy, so I shouldn't judge wings. My son thought the wings were fine. So they were fine, but overpriced. You get the bill at the end of the day and you're like, wow, I paid that much for that food. Won't be hurrying back anytime soon, but I enjoyed looking around the building. It was really a neat, it's if you wanted to go with your friends, have a couple of beers, watch sports, certainly that's, but don't expect good food. Don't expect high quality food. It's average. Now I heard the waitress say that on the whiteout last year, they made $35,000 that day. And she said, I literally, because she got overtime, worked like from morning to 1 a.m. Because she wanted to suck up the overtime. But so I'm sure they're, when school's in, I'm sure they're booming, and especially on the weekends. But there's so many places over there. It's so neat. It's not like Philly or Pittsburgh or anything like that. I don't mean it that way, but there are so many places over there now to eat. Like if I lived in State College, I would never cook. Why would I cook when, and different Chinese, Korean restaurants, Mexican restaurants, Japanese sushi, burger joints, pizza places, you name it, steakhouses, seafood, literally have everything you could possibly. I would never cook if I lived in State College. So, but Buffalo Wild Wings, cool facility, really average food. So, all right, that does it for this week's Musings of a Sports Fanatic. By next week, I'm going to look into how can I boost my YouTube channel. Not seeing any eyeballs on my live stream, and with good reason. My YouTube, it was dead for a year, and I decided I wanted to try this. Trying to get Rex to do YouTube and iTunes for our podcast here at PennSports.live, but if you knew Rex, you would understand. He's a slow mover on things. So, but we'll get him on that. But for now, I'm going to keep using my YouTube channel and see if I can boost it a little bit. So enjoy the games, USC fans. Cross your fingers today that we can get to Omaha. That'd be cool. But a good golf tournament to watch this weekend. Lots of baseball, Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA Finals, a pretty good stretch of sports here. So enjoy all the games. Enjoy, if you're like me, it's hot here in Central PA. And you know the drill. Until next week, be nice to one another.